So my study was the role of grandparents in childhood obesity in China. And as the title may imply, the research question is the involvement of grandparents and childcare an important factor contributing to childhood obesity in China? The population, three Guangzhou school communities comprising of low, middle, and affluent class communities, and one affluent class in Heichi. Separate focus groups for parents, grandparents, class level teachers, and school nurses, PE teachers, catering staff responsible for children's school meals, and shop retailers were included. Their focus groups had two sessions, each lasting 90 minutes, and they were moderated by a native Chinese speaker. The first session explored perception of childhood obesity in China, also the factors contributing to that, and then the second session kind of explored different strategies for implementing interventions. That same year, they conducted a cross-sectional study in the same communities, and they obtained weight and height data for third graders, and they did this during the student health surveillance program done at the school, so it was good that it was kind of part of routine and nothing out of the ordinary for the children to go through. So in each school, three classes of third graders were randomly selected for the study, and the parents of all the selected children were invited to complete a questionnaire that asked questions about family, neighborhood, sociodemographic, obesogenic behavior characteristics of Chinese primary school children. And there were also questions about household composition, child's diet using a food frequency questionnaire, and physical activity levels using the Good and Leisure Time questionnaire. In order to assess the role of the grandparents in the family, they also asked two questions about if the grandparents lived in the household, and then also who the child spends more time with after school during the weekdays. Before I go into the results, I wanted to take a closer look or bring special attention to the food frequency questionnaire that they use. So this is kind of what they based it off of. I think it's showing up in reverse text, but it's you can see it's pretty basic. It has the product and amount, and then lists the foods here. So my only concern with this is this opens up a whole other conversation in terms of if the parents or the grandparents understand serving sizes and understand the different foods and food groups and all of that. So I feel like that kind of limits the accuracy of the results. And then also, this is all kind of based on the parents' and grandparents' verbal report. So since this can be a sensitive topic for parents to talk about in terms of their children's weight or if they are overweight or obese, this kind of tap into like the blame game. Like maybe the parents want to just blame it on somebody else, and it can't be their fault that their child is overweight. So kind of taking that into consideration. I know it's different for every household, but it's just something that I was thinking about while reading the study. So moving into the results, the mixed method study showed a strong influence of the grandparents on childhood obesity. The qualitative results, 95 participants took part in 17 focus groups, and 4 school principals took part in personal interviews, and around half the parents who participated in the focus groups said that they had at least one grandparent living in their household and played a significant role in their childcare. And based on the responses from the grandparents in the focus group, there was a theme amongst the grandparents that found overweight children to be a good thing, due to the fact that they thought fat means wealth, and also it's better to be overfed and underfed, and also misconceptions about healthy diet and health risks associated with childhood obesity. For example, through their own childhood experience, they learned that high blood sugar, high blood pressure, and high cholesterol do not affect children, and they only affect adults. And therefore, children can eat freely, can eat whatever they want or need, and they should. And then also energy-dense foods were also perceived to be as healthy foods to have in general for the children. And based on their own childhood experiences, it's also coming from growing up with a larger household in general, where there were plenty of children and siblings to share the food around the table at each meal, and now there's only one child, single households, and plenty of adults to take care of them and look after them. So that's kind of a different shift in terms of there's not as much food to share or to distribute among the family. And then also unhealthy snacks are being given as a reward Um, and so kind of taking all of this into account, it kind of gives a lot of perspective of how, how grandparents grew up and their experience and how they are using those experiences to take care of, their children or grandchildren. So the cross-sectional results, 508 out of the 554 parents completed the questionnaire, and out of the group, 45.9% of them lived with at least one grandparent. And from that group, about 25% of the children were overweight or obese. And living with at least two grandparents in the same household and being primarily cared for by grandparents were significantly associated with child overweight and obesity. They also found that there was a higher frequency of unhealthy snack consumption with children taken care of by grandparents, and about two more servings of unhealthy snacks per week in comparison with children taking care of their parents. No association was found between grandparents' care and physical activity, which is something they also noted. So I already kind of talked about the potential limitations and also things that could affect the results for the study. And in terms of practical application, I think that it's really important to take all this information whenever you're dealing with any type of nutrition counseling. I know my experience at WIC, it was important to look at the entire family and the environment the child is in, where they're getting their food from, who has a strong influence on that, because even though this study was in China, in America we have all different ethnic backgrounds and traditions that families are using. So it's important to make it a team effort and make sure that we are taking into consideration the different beliefs and practices that are being used in the household, and